This video is sponsored by Squarespace. I didn't grow up in like a game show family. We weren't watching Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune. We also didn't do reality competition shows, so no Survivor, no Amazing Race. At this point, my only knowledge of Survivor is the Dropout Game Changer episodes, which I don't think is an accurate representation of that franchise. But when I was a kid, the only competition show I ever watched, which I was a huge fan of, was Fetch with Ruffman on PBS Kids. The story of Fetch actually starts with a show called Zoom. Zoom was a PBS show from 1972 to 1978, produced by WGBH in Boston. According to the Wikipedia page, a cast of 7 kids known as Zoomers presented various activities such as games, plays, poems, recipes, jokes, movies, and science experiments, all suggested by viewer contributions. So the gimmick was that Zoom was by kids for kids. Kids could submit their ideas for the show to the Zoom mailbox.
Say you wake up in the middle of the night, you got an idea that's out of sight.
So you jump out of bed, look around your room, you gotta write it down and send it to Zoom.
Write Zoom, Z-O-O-M, Box 350, Boston, Mass. 02134.
Then in 1999, there was a reboot of Zoom. I don't think I ever watched it. I have no memory of it. I think I was slightly too young. Because it was a kids show, but for slightly older kids, so I don't think I was ever the right age while it was airing. And also in 1999, PBS launched PBS Kids. So before this, kids content would just air on the normal PBS station, and they'd have like a block of time for kids content. But PBS Kids was going to be showing kids content 24/7. This was part of a broader initiative at PBS to increase funding for children's programming. This new Zoom aired on PBS Kids until 2005, when it was canceled for falling ratings. Executive producer Kate Taylor said, "We started developing the new Zoom when there was very little live action for kids in the landscape. Zoom was a fresh new idea. It had an incredibly successful run for the years it was on. But as kids have started watching reality shows, some for adults, some for kids, we started thinking, how could we reinvent the show, make it more current? So for Zoom's final season, they gave it a new reality show segment that took the cast members out of the studio and into towns across Massachusetts. So like a segment where the Zoomers go on a fishing boat. But obviously this increase in reality show segments was not enough to save the show. The producers thought about revamping Zoom, but they decided to start fresh. We were all ambivalent about not using the Zoom name and the power of the brand. But all said, why not come up with a new show idea that points us in the new direction that isn't so hamstrung by anything we have done in the past? A December 2004 Boston Globe article mentions that the replacement to Zoom might be a new live-action show called Hot Seat. But the follow-up ended up being Fetch with Ruffman, a spiritual successor to Zoom made by the same production team. So what is Fetch? Fetch is an educational reality competition show for kids that happens to be hosted by a cartoon dog. This dog is the eponymous Ruffman.
Are we live? Oh, hi, I'm Ruffman, and you're about to witness the most important event in television history, the world premiere of Fetch with Ruffman. Whoa, sorry, I went puppy there for a second.
Within the show's canon, Ruff is unsatisfied with his life and decides he wants to host a game show. So he pitches it to PBS, who approves the project before realizing that he is a dog. I guess we're going on like Air Bud rules. Like there's no rule that a dog can't host a reality game show. And Ruffman really is the heart of the show. He is a plump orange dog with tiny little feet and round glasses. I'm trying to emulate him today. I didn't do round glasses because I feel like those make me look ugly. I was aiming for Ruff. I feel like I landed somewhere in the ballpark of Rachel Maddow. Not every costume is going to be perfect. Ruff is wisecracking and egotistical, but also pretty immature and anxious. He is voiced by Jim Conroy.
Hi, I'm Jim Conroy. Probably the one I'm most known for, which is Ruffman. For PBS Kids, I started doing that back in 2005. It was only my second cartoon, and it was the first show that I was able to contribute to the creative process. as well as just voice a character. It was very improv driven, very collaborative. We were kind of making it up as we went along.
Jim got his start doing impressions on Celebrity Deathmatch on MTV, and later voiced Kenny the Shark on Discovery Kids. He is the voice of Ruff Ruffman, and also a long list of Ruff Ruffman family members. Ruff has a whole host of relatives who make appearances on the show.
I don't think they had the money to get a full cast. You know, their budget was really constrained, so they had me do all the voices on the show. You know, they would say, okay, we're doing Ruff has another cousin. Ruff always has another cousin.
Yeah.
Here's a Swedish rock star, Ruffman. I was like, and I would go to Glenn Berger, who's our head writer. I said, I can't do a Swedish accent. And he'd go, oh, that's great. Yeah, the worse the better.
Now, Jim Conroy has done a few interviews, which I greatly appreciate, but he doesn't have a website.
I've never made a website. I'm one of the last holdouts.
You know what one is?
Yeah, I've been to a couple, but
Okay,
I don't care for it.
And it's my opinion that everybody should have a website. And hey, if you want a website, you can manage it with the sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. Squarespace allows you to build a beautiful website with zero coding. Thank goodness. You can make a portfolio, a blog, or even an online store. They have fully customizable templates with drag and drop layouts. And they have tons of cool design tools. You can choose a custom color palette, Google and Typekit fonts, and different post types. Let's say you're a voice actor famous for voicing a cartoon dog. Squarespace has native video and audio hosting, so you can host a portfolio of your voice actor work. Speaking of portfolios, Squarespace has image editing and lightbox galleries, so you can display images full screen. If any of that sounds interesting to you, go to squarespace.com for a free trial, play around a little bit, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/SarahSerif to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So let's look at the structure of a standard episode of Fetch.
I need more time. Please, if I just had one more month, it would be perfect.
And this segment usually sets up some sort of problem that Ruff is having, which is going to loosely connect to the challenges of the episodes. Ruff lives in his doghouse and is running the show with a supercomputer called the Fetch 3000. Sometimes Ruff's problems are entirely self-inflicted, but often they have to do with another character. There is Henry, the president of the television network, who will often call Ruff on the Henry hotline and express that he is angry about something Ruff is doing. Henry is entirely off-screen, we never hear or see him. Another character we never hear is Charlene, the poodle who lives next door.
Oh, I can ask Charlene, the poodle next door. Oh, she's pretty classy, and she likes me. She told me once I had halitosis. That means charm and good looks, I think.
Ruff has an unrequited crush on Charlene, and he will often do things to try and impress her.
Charlene, I named Charlene. Charlene is actually, in real life, Charlene is the wife of a friend of mine, and they showed me a picture of the poodle, and usually when you think poodle, you think champagne poodle, and and then I go Charlene. Mm-hmm. And my wife is like, why would you name it after her and not me? I was like, because Jamie is not a poodle name.
Yeah, it is.
Charlene is a poodle name. Yeah.
But we do know what she looks like because Ruff has a framed photo of her in the shape of a heart, which is kind of creepy. There's also Spot Spotnik, Ruff's rival, and Ruff often tries to either get back at Spot or one-up him. Ruff also has various family members who may present the problems for the episode. Now that our problems are set up, we get the theme song. Then Ruff introduces our contestants as they enter the studio. There are 6 contestants each season, 3 girls and 3 boys. They are referred to as fetchers. And they're always introduced with a fun fact, and the facts are almost always bad.
She doesn't like summer as much as spring. Taylor!
I have a feeling the producers just give them a worksheet with a bunch of basic questions, like what's your favorite food? What superpower would you want to have? What do you want to be when you grow up? But they are almost always lame. And then there is always a very unflattering freeze frame so that we can put the contestant's name on screen. They're always like out of focus, in the middle of moving. My mom was trying to remember some of the contestants because she was obviously around when I was watching the show. And I was showing her some of these pictures, and she was like, are these the best pictures they have? The studio is called Studio G. It is Ruff's Human's Garage. But Ruff doesn't like it when you call it the garage.
All right, rule number 1. We never refer to Studio G as the garage, okay?
Sorry, Ruff. Okay.
It makes me a little insecure.
The contestants then sit on lawn chairs facing a TV, and an animated Ruff Ruffman appears on the TV, joking with them in real time. Ruff assigns challenges. There's usually 2 in an episode, but sometimes only 1, and the kids have to grab their instructions from the mailbox. And this is where we get the iconic,
Go fetch!
Usually not all 6 fetchers will be on a challenge in any given episode, so some of them will stay behind in Studio G. The fetchers left behind in the studio are eligible to win points during the halftime quiz show. And Ruff always mentions the Fetch Fairness Guarantee. All of the contestants will have been eligible to win the same number of points by the grand finale. So meaning each contestant will have been on challenges the same number of times and in the studio the same number of times. I'm imagining the producers with some giant spreadsheet trying to plan out which contestants are going to go on which challenges to make the math work out. Then we follow the fetchers on their challenges. These challenges are always educational in nature. A lot of the time they're science-based. Major funding for the show came from the National Science Foundation, but sometimes the challenges are more cultural, like learning to dance or attending some sort of cultural festival. But always, the fetchers are learning something from an expert. Then, halfway through the show, we have the halftime quiz show. Fetchers in the studio are asked questions about what happened in the first half of the show. There are 10 questions that are each worth 5 points. When the show started, the kids had 90 seconds to complete the quiz, but in later seasons, that got dropped down to 60 seconds. Then we get the second half of the challenges, and the kids all come back to the studio for the Triumph Tally, where Ruff awards points. And in every episode, one fetcher receives bonus points.
Is that all the points a dog can give?
No.
What time is it?
Bonus point.
And this is for doing something particularly clever or brave on a challenge. The fetcher with the most points in an episode is the daily winner, and they receive some sort of daily prize. The prize could be something great, or it could be something funny and bad. In the first season, the winner had the option to keep the prize and take a chance that it would be good, or give it to another fetcher. But the contestants would basically never opt to give it away. So from season 2 onward, the contestant would have the option between prize A and prize B. It's my conspiracy theory that this choice was always meaningless. I think the producers always came up with one prize, because the prizes are always thematically relevant to the challenges. So it's not like you could repurpose an unused prize on another episode. So if I was in charge, I wouldn't want to come up with 2 ideas and then have one go to waste. Because you'd have to have the props department either buy something or make something, which is time and money. So why would you do that 2 times when you could just make one and present the illusion of choice? But who knows, maybe I'm being a conspiracy theorist for no reason. So now that I've explained the structure, how are they pulling this off? Well, the big secret is that the show is filmed out of order. All of the challenges are filmed over the summer because they don't want the kids missing school. A season would have more than 500 hours of material, and they would edit that down into a rough cut. Then, after filming all the challenges, the fetchers would spend 2 weeks filming all of the studio segments. So this is the beginning, when they're getting the challenges, the halftime quiz show, and the ending where points are awarded. In season 1, Studio G was created in an actual barn, but from season 2 onwards, they filmed in the WGBH studios.
Yeah.
Now, in season 1, we shot on location in an actual barn, and I was outside in a camper with no air conditioning and just dripping sweat. Season 2, we were inside the air-conditioned WGBH studios, which were brand new. Mwah. But you can't replicate that first season of we have no idea what we're doing, but it's awesome.
Jim Conroy would be in an audio booth outside of the studio, and there would be a camera filming him, and that feed went to the TV in Studio G. So what the kids are actually seeing on the TV is Jim Conroy talking to them. And Jim Conroy has the studio's audio feed in his headphones, so he can hear what they are saying.
So I get my coffee, and I have my big giant script, and I go into a back room that looks like this, where I have a microphone, and I have a camera where I can see, and I have a monitor, and my monitor would show, like what I'm looking at right now is you guys.
Yeah.
But what I would see is the features in the studio, in Studio G. And they would look at the television monitor, and they would see me dressed as me, and they would see a microphone, and I would have drawings of the characters, cutouts on popsicle sticks, so that when I was doing a character, you know, I'd hold up Grandma Ruff and I'm like, "Hello, dear," so that they have something to look at and talk to. Otherwise, they're just talking to me. So the illusion is like gone.
And that's how they were able to capture the back and forth between Ruff and the kids in real time. So Ruff would assign the challenges. Kids have already been on the challenges, so they have to pretend like they're hearing it for the first time. Then for the halftime quiz show, the kids who are taking the quiz have to watch the rough cut of the challenges.
And then usually that we shoot those intros 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
Oh, wow.
And then usually by then it's lunchtime, so we break for lunch, and everybody gets something to eat. Now, while we're all eating, the fetchers that stay behind for the halftime quiz show are watching the footage that was shot out into the field, because they have to become familiar with all the things they did on the challenge, because they're about to be asked 10 questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So they have to see the challenge. They can't just like, you know, they didn't go on the challenge. They're not watching it in real time. The challenge was done 2 months ago. So they have to spend their lunch hour watching the challenge.
Then they take the quiz, and Jim Conroy said something in an interview that had never occurred to me, which is that these are the points that the kids actually control.
So then they come back, we're going to shoot the halftime quiz show, and that happens. Like, I'm asking questions, and they are answering them, or they're not answering, they're getting it right, they're getting it wrong, and we're trying to get that thing in within like a minute, I guess. 90 seconds maybe. And then, boom, what they get right, they get. You know, when I'm ordering bonus points, and at the end of the episode, I'm already told what those points are going to be. You know, I'm told what that's going to be, because they know how they did out in the field, because they watched them do the challenge. So that's like arbitrary.
Yeah.
You know, but the halftime quiz show is where the fetchers really make their points. That's where they can separate themselves from everybody else. Because, you know, it's a kid show. You're not going to say like, well, you suck today, so you only get 2 points. You're not going to do that. That's horrible. Why would you do that? That's like, not good. You're trying to promote science and teamwork. That just doesn't happen.
Going off on a challenge, you're basically always going to get between 70 and 90 points. And it kind of doesn't matter if the kids really struggle on a challenge, because the show is all about learning and trying your best. But the halftime quiz show, either you get it right or you get it wrong. And you can get between 0 and 50 points. As a kid, I was like, the halftime quiz show is a sham. You can't even get that many points. But now I see the error of my ways. Then they would film Ruff assigning the points.
Then we bring everybody back like they just came back from the challenges. So the fetchers now have to change, you know, they have to make sure they're in the same outfits they wore when they were on the challenge.
Yeah.
And come back in. And like, wow, how was that boat adventure that you did 2 months ago, but really you did it today? They're like, oh, man, you know, they even had to like wet Khalil's socks. You know, like, yeah, my socks are still wet. Just put them in the sink.
After filming the studio segments, Jim Conroy would film the rest of the Ruff audio. So this includes Ruff's commentary on the challenges, where Jim watches a cut of the challenges and does some mostly improvised commentary over them.
Now, I haven't seen any of the challenges. Now I start going into a studio in New York, and the challenges, the video has been edited down into what they're going to use. And now the show becomes Mystery Science Theater 3000. You guys know that show? Now I'm in a booth, and I'm watching a video of the challenges, and I'm just making it up. I'm commenting on it.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes a director in my ear will say, oh, make sure you mention that the kids have, you know, who this person is at the museum and all that. And I'll have a little bit of dialogue. It's bullet pointed so that I can say like, oh, and now the kids are going to meet Jeff from da-da-da-da.
Jim Conroy would also record the audio for the animated intro and outro of every episode. And this is the only part of the show that is completely scripted. At this point, lead editor Harchick decides where and for how long Ruff will appear on camera. These are very important decisions because Ruff will need to be animated for those pieces, and the animators need to know, to the frame, how long to make the animations. So at this point, the editors have done a rough cut of the challenges. Now the editors need to cut the studio segments and add Jim Conroy's commentary. Then they send the episode to the animators. The animation was done in Vancouver by a company called Global Mechanic. They did the animations using Adobe Flash. The animators would receive a completed edit with placeholder graphics where the animations would appear, and each segment that needed to be animated would be assigned a code number. The animators would have the length of each clip and its corresponding audio. They also had the video from Conroy's performance in the audio booth so they could use his facial expressions for Ruff. There are also times where Ruff appears on a video monitor in the room with the kids. When using that type of angle, Harchick cuts a quick black and white matte in Photoshop, using that to get Ruff onto the computer screen. Each episode required up to 8 minutes of animation, and it would take a few months to finish. There were 4 editors working on the show, and they had a staggered 4-week system where one of them was ready to send an episode to the animators every Friday. I also want to mention the theme song.
Life was missing its mystique. My squeaky toys had lost their squeak. And then, out of the blue, I saw the phone, and bam! My destiny was calling me. Pitched my vision for a show. They loved it, thought I was a pro. They got my contract back to find. To their alarm, a dog had signed. Oh, I like that name.
The theme song is by Terry Tompkins, Steve D'Angelo, Glenn Berger, and Rocco Gagliese. It won the 2008 Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Song, Children's, and Animation. And apparently, even though Jim Conroy sang the song, he did not receive that Emmy.
You get the Fetch theme song, the Emmy-winning Fetch theme song, which I do not have an Emmy for.
Yes.
I sang it, I don't have an Emmy. And improv'd a couple of the... that's still sticking in my... I'm very diva bitter about that one. But it's a nice piece of trivia.
The song is very fun and catchy. It has sort of a jazzy vibe. And I don't know if I'll be allowed to play it because of copyright. So if I can't, my apologies. It's a very good theme song. Now, I would be remiss if I did not talk about some of my favorite episodes of Fetch. The problem is, there are 100 episodes of Fetch. They did 5 seasons with 20 episodes each. So I'm going to talk about quite a few per season, and we're going to have to agree that that's enough. Season 1 stars Anna, Taylor, Julia, Brian, Khalil, and Noah. The pilot episode is called 3-2-1 Blast Off. Ruff is pretty frazzled. He's not prepared for this first episode, but he sends Julia, Anna, and Khalil out on a space race. The city has been turned into a scale model of the solar system. Models of the planets have been placed around the city, and the kids have to solve clues to find them. Each planet they have to find has a time limit, and they don't always make it. Perhaps partially due to the fact that both the GPS and the stopwatch have technical difficulties.
Ruff, I haven't been too happy with your electronics here.
Oh no,
I don't think we should listen to any of his electronics.
the GPS isn't working either. Oh, this is a nightmare.
And Khalil receives bonus points for mentioning Ruff Ruffman's name to basically everyone they interact with. Ye Old Colonial episode. Ruff causes a power outage, which gives him the idea to send the Fetchers back in time. The Fetchers go to Plymouth Plantation, where everyone is in character as though it is 1627. They compete doing various colonial chores, like making flour out of corn and watering the garden. They spend the night, and in the morning, the boys and the girls are given the choice between cows and goats. The boys pick the goats, and the girls pick the cows. And the girls are disappointed to discover that they are not going to be milking the cows, they are going to be picking up cow poop.
I would normally be doing this in a skirt.
I would normally be doing this at all.
And in one of the iconic moments from this show, Julia gets poop on her finger. The boys win the competition overall, but their daily prize is dirty laundry and a wash basin. Saturday night with a slight fever. Ruff was supposed to have a celebrity guest star for this episode, but they canceled. And Ruff is left scrambling trying to find someone who would be easily recognizable to the kids. He sends Taylor, Brian, and Noah off on the challenge. They're going to be learning how to produce a music video and working with Joey, the director of an Aaron Carter music video. The kids speculate as to who the celebrity guest is going to be, and name the most random list of celebrities I have ever heard in my life.
How about Joe Perry?
Jojo.
It's Jojo. I gotta do my whole hair over.
What if it's like Ben Stiller?
Why would it be any of those people? And then it turns out that the easily recognizable stars Ruff was able to get are the kids' grandparents.
Look, my instructions from Henry were the following. Get somebody who would be instantly recognizable. As far as I'm concerned, I fulfilled my obligation as host of this program.
So the kids film a music video with a $30 budget using their grandparents. It doesn't look great, obviously. BLT for breakfast. Ruff has invested a lot of money into liver and pineapple flavored shakes, and they are not good. So he sends Taylor, Khalil, and Noah to invent a new ice cream flavor. The main ingredients have to start with the letters BLT, and 2 of them have to be vegetables. They end up making ice cream with butternut squash, lemon, and the tiniest little bit of tomato juice. Meanwhile, Brian has to learn how to be a short order cook at a diner. This is sort of a subversion of the normal setup, because the cook that Brian is going to be working with comes and wakes him up in his own home. Brian has to take orders and make breakfast for his family, and then he has to go work in a diner. I think as a kid, I just really liked any episode that had to do with food, and any episode that differed from the normal format. The mystery of the missing thing in the haunted castle. Ruff tells the kids about his ancestor, the great Raphael Ruffmanowitz, who was a great dog inventor, but his invention has been lost. So Ruff sends the kids to Hammond Castle to try and find this lost invention. The atmosphere in this episode is amazing. They're in this like spooky castle. There's this old man caretaker who's doing a great job of being spooky.
And the snake team were going into the dining room, straight up the stairs, and I'll be right behind you.
You're not gonna follow them, are you?
No, I'm not.
The kids have to solve these various puzzles, including finding letters in the dark, going to the dungeon and making a periscope to see what a skeleton is looking at, and making a device to grab a basket from the pool. In the end, we discover that Raphael Ruffmanowitz's invention was an early version of the Fetch 3000 computer. That doesn't float my boat. Ruff accidentally floods his doghouse, so he sends Anna, Khalil, and Julia to go build a boat. They meet with a kid who designed a floating bicycle boat, and then they go with this kid and his dad to the dump to scour for materials. I don't know what the casting process for this show was like. Like, who are these people? I think they were just like, let's find some random people in Massachusetts who seem nice. The kids build a boat, but the boat doesn't quite work, so they come back the next day and make modifications, which does improve the boat, and then they have to take part in a boat race, and they fail so spectacularly.
Oh, now they're breaking out the paddles.
Oh, Khalil. Paddle.
Where they had to make the boats. That was my favorite episode, because I loved Khalil. I thought everything Khalil did was hilarious.
Oh, man.
Khalil was 10 years old, and he was an instant star, and he was instantly comfortable, and he was so positive. Yeah. I mean, I loved all the kids, but there was something about Khalil that just cracked me up.
Grandma Ruffman's recipe for success. We meet Grandma Ruffman.
I didn't even know you watched my show. What do you think?
Well, I wish the host were a little funnier.
But Grandma, I'm the host.
I make some calls, see if a real comedian can't give you some tips.
Who is also played by Jim Conroy.
I voiced everybody. Well, Grandma Ruffman was based on my wife's grandmother.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Who passed away a number of years ago, but she always had a voice like this.
Yeah.
So everything was like, I kind of, a lot of her little buzzwords like, hello, dears, and, it's horrible.
Oh, man.
Terrible. Oi, bubby. That was all her grandmother, so that was nice, because her father's like, I still get to spend time with my mother when I watch the show, and I'm like, you're too old to watch the show. Stop that.
She wants Ruff to sell her cookbook on his show, but she's worried he's not funny enough to pull in the high ratings she needs. So Taylor, Brian, and Noah go to a farm where they collect ingredients and cook one of Grandma's recipes from scratch. And Khalil meets with a comedian to learn how to do a stand-up set. The Dog-cathalon finale. This is the finale episode of season 1, and Ruff is very emotional. The way finales work on Fetch is there are several elimination rounds, And the fetchers who are matched up in these elimination rounds depends on how many points they had going into the finale. So the 6th and 5th place contestants go head-to-head in some sort of silly physical challenge. Then whoever wins goes up against the 4th place contestant. Then the top 4 are split up into 2 teams, and they have to do some sort of engineering/building challenge. In this episode, the teams had to make towers that could hold dog food. The team who wins the building challenge then go head-to-head answering questions about the season. Then they do one last, vaguely science-based task. In this episode, they had to smell and guess random objects. After each fetcher that is eliminated, Ruff plays a highlight reel of their time on the show. Then they collect a smoothie from the mailbox, and they get to watch the rest of the finale from a lounge area. I believe the Fetch team was planning this finale like the night before, which it does feel a little unpolished. Like one of the challenges is popping balloons with your butts. That's kind of nothing. But I think season 1 in general, they just didn't know what they were doing yet and had a very limited budget, more so than the other seasons, I think. And this finale worked well enough to where they kept this format for all subsequent finales. They just got a little bit more fancy with the execution. Season 1's winner is Anna, and she takes her place in the Hall of Fame. In Season 2, we meet our contestants Maddie, Nina, Bridget, Rosario, Mike, and Willie. The first episode is Ruff Ruffman Breaks the Mold. Ruff is trying to use these snack molds, and he's having trouble with it. And he accidentally sends an email to every newspaper in the country that Ruff Ruffman is having a mold problem. So for challenge 1, he sends Mike and Willie to learn about germs. They take samples from Mike's house, then they go to the lab to test the samples to see what has the most bacteria. Challenge number 2, Maddie and Nina go to a chocolate factory to learn how to make candies. This is basically an extended I Love Lucy bit, where Nina and Maddie are struggling with the chocolate conveyor belt.
Keep sending some over, Maddie. Nina, put them all on the sides. Yes, it's working!
Aha! Oh, there's more coming! It's like an army!
And you know what? I Love Lucy was right. That is funny. Also in this episode, Ruff gets a cat assistant. Henry, the president of the network, has a niece who has a cat. And so that cat is now going to be Ruff's intern. Her name is Princess Blossom Pepperdoodle Von Yum Yum. She is very smart and competent and always rolling her eyes at Ruff's antics. Blossom doesn't speak. She occasionally makes like a little noise. I think they literally just didn't want to get another voice actor. I loved Blossom as a kid. I loved a smart girl character. I loved her cute little desk setup and her purple glasses. I considered dressing as Blossom, but I was worried it wouldn't be recognizable enough. I mean, not that this is necessarily recognizable as Ruff Ruffman, but like, Ruff is at least the main character. The Mystery of Dogtopia and Catlantis. Ruff and his great uncle McRuffmantosh are talking about the legend of Dogtopia, an island where cats and dogs live together in harmony. But something happened to make the dogs and cats hate each other, and the island fell to ruin. The dogs and cats have different legends about what happened. For example, Blossom knows the island as Catlantis. Ruff sends the Fetchers to investigate the mystery of what happened on Dogtopia/Catlantis. They break up into teams and have to solve puzzles, including using pulleys to lift a heavy boat and building an electromagnet. All the while they're collecting various artifacts and stone idols. In the end, they find the monster that was driving the dogs and cats apart, and it turns out it was vacuum cleaners. And the daily prize for that day is a vacuum bag. The small fork is for dessert, unless you're a dolphin. Grandma Ruffman is disgusted by Ruff's manners, so she sends Rosario and Nina to talk to an etiquette expert. The two of them learn proper table manners and learn how to plan a party.
Rosario, I don't think you're holding that fork right.
Rosario? I know. You are supposed to be teaching Ruff etiquette, not eating like Ruff.
Oh, Rosario, I think we both need some work.
Also in this episode, Ruff got a call from his friend who's a dolphin, so he sends Willie to the Living Seas exhibit at Epcot to learn about dolphins. Willie competes against the dolphin at swimming and jumping and holding his breath. Obviously the dolphin wins. And at the end of the episode, Willie is able to make it just in time to Rosario and Nina's party. Roughing it with Ruff. Ruff's person is putting in a pool, and so his doghouse is going to be demolished. He's worried he's going to have to live out in the wild, so he sends the fetchers to talk to a survivalist. The kids learn about building a shelter and starting a fire, and the next day they compete to see who can get rescued first. I think between stuff like this and books like Hatchet, I think kids are just fascinated by the idea of being alone and have to figure things out and survive. But I'm watching this now and I'm like, when would this ever be information I would need? Tape loops and loop the loops. I'm only going to talk about one of the challenges in this episode because I only care about one of them. Bridget and Willie went to Disney World to talk to Imagineers about roller coasters. They talk about gravity and inertia and design their own roller coaster. Two Disney nerd things about this. One is they talk about the roller coaster Expedition Everest, which this would have been filmed right when that roller coaster opened. If you don't know, that roller coaster is famous in Disney circles because it has a giant Yeti animatronic that is broken. They built this Yeti animatronic. It's like the most powerful animatronic ever. And it moves and lunges at you as you're going in this roller coaster through a mountain. But a few months after the coaster opened, Imagineers realized that the massive movements of this Yeti were going to break the structure of this roller coaster. I think the theory is that the foundation of the mountain wasn't done correctly, and this giant moving animatronic was a structural problem. But the way they built this mountain and this animatronic, they can't just go in and fix it. They'd have to dismantle part of the mountain and take the Yeti out and work on it there. Basically, it would be like a major refurbishment. So instead, they turned the Yeti off, and the Yeti is now in B mode. So A mode would be moving around as intended, and B mode is the Yeti does not move, but they flash a strobe light at it, and they blow a fan on it so its fur moves, and it sort of gives the impression that it is moving. I loved the sort of snarky phrasing of the Wikipedia article for this roller coaster. Joe Rohde, the Imagineer in charge of building the attraction and Animal Kingdom, was asked about the Yeti at the 2013 D23 Expo. "I will fix the Yeti someday, I swear." Rohde retired from Walt Disney Imagineering effective January 4th, 2021, never having completed the repairs to the Yeti animatronic. I just think it's cool because based on the timeline, Bridget and Willie got to ride Expedition Everest with the Yeti in A mode. Then when the two of them design their roller coaster, they get to ride it in a simulation. This was the Cyberspace Mountain attraction at the now defunct Disney Quest theme park. Defunctland has a video about Disney Quest if you're interested. And I know he also has a video about Fetch with Ruff Ruffman. I watched it when he posted it. But I'm doing something different. I'm not trying to be Kevin Perjurer, alright? It's just funny to me that this episode was made in 2006, so there's multiple defunct Disney things in it. Scruff Ruffman at large. It turns out that Ruff Ruffman has an evil twin brother named Scruff Ruffman. Scruff Ruffman broke out of the high security pound he was being kept in and has done some sort of art heist. I think somehow using a trapeze. So challenge 1, Rosario, Nina, and Bridget have to go recover the stolen artwork in a cave system. So they learn about different geological features while exploring this cave. Meanwhile, Maddie is challenged to learn the flying trapeze. She is initially quite freaked out, but she is able to do it. This is one of the times where it's funny that the studio segments are filmed 2 months later, because they had to put the kids back in the cave spelunking outfits and put dirt on them, put Maddie back in her trapeze costume, and we're all pretending like we did this today.
We've been caving for you all day!
CSI Ruff. Ruff sends the kids to go pick up the grand prize from his old obedience school. But the grand prize has been stolen. So the kids work with the Boston Police Department and forensic scientists to collect evidence and try and find the culprit. They learn about footprints, fingerprints, DNA, and the kids determine the culprit But the culprit says that he was instructed to steal the grand prize by Ruff, and so Ruff is now the prime suspect. Ruff thinks that Blossom took his fur and fingerprints to frame him, and he's upset that he's been betrayed by his assistant. The prizeless grand prize finale. Ruff is going to be sent to the notorious dog prison, Poodle Island, but first he's going to do his grand finale episode. So nice of them to let him do that before they arrested him. During the episode, we learn that Blossom has cleared Ruff's name. She figured out that it was Scruff Ruffman who stole the prize, so she disguised herself as Scruff to get the prize back and proved Ruff's innocence to the police. So now we have Blossom back and the grand prize. In the end, Mike is crowned the Season 2 Grand Champion. In Season 3, we meet Noelle, Harsha, Sammy, Sam, DJ, and Jay. Also, Blossom has been promoted to Ruff's supervisor, and Ruff gets a new mouse assistant named Chet. The debut of Smell-O-Vision. The first episode of Season 3 is going to be broadcast in Smell-O-Vision, and for some reason the president is watching, but Ruff is sprayed by a skunk and thus stinks up the White House, and the president is very angry with him. The president at this time would have been George Bush, and I think he deserved it. DJ and Harsha learn about skunks and use chemistry to neutralize a skunk spray. Meanwhile, Jay and Sam learn to be junior lifeguards.
It's time for Fetch Lifeguard with Jay and Sam. I'm smelling a spin-off.
Hey, that was awesome, dude.
They don't call me a lifeguard in training for nothing.
I forget how that's connected to anything. We learn about rip currents, and again, I will never need that information. Maybe you swim in the ocean, and that's good for you to know. Never going to be applicable in my life. But as a kid, I was like, rip currents, yes, what do I do? Mr. Ruffman goes to Washington. Ruff learns that based on some old law, it's actually illegal for a dog to host a game show. So he wants to become an elected official to change the law. For Challenge 1, Sam goes to Washington to meet with Senator Ted Kennedy. Big PBS fan, I guess. Sam has to survey constituents and talk to the Secretary of Education and determine whether it's a good idea to make the school day longer. He then presents his findings to Senator Ted Kennedy. Challenge number 2, Noelle, Sammy, and DJ design a campaign float for Ruff. They work with Macy's Parade float builders and make a giant foam ruff. Then they display the float in a parade. According to the WGBH TikTok account, this giant foam ruff is in the WGBH studios. Thank God they kept it. It's very cool. Mission improbable. Ruff's prized dog collar is now in the possession of an enemy spy named Ken L. Koff. So the Fetchers go to Washington, D.C. for training to become secret agents. And as I was watching this episode, I was like, that place looks familiar. Have I been there before? And yes, I have. It is the Spy Museum in Washington, D.C. When I was in middle school, I did one of those Washington, D.C. trips with my school, and we went to that museum. And at the time, I don't think they still do, but at the time they had an interactive exhibit that was kind of like an escape room, and that's where they filmed portions of this episode. The Dog Vinci Code. Great Uncle McRuffmantosh is back, and he and Ruff are talking about the mystery of the Mona Lisa. A secret order of cats knows why the Mona Lisa is smiling, and they've been guarding that secret for hundreds of years. But the Fetchers are going to solve clues to uncover the mystery. They solve various puzzles to reveal letters, and those letters are unscrambled to reveal a word, which is the code word to a cipher, which leads them to a Da Vinci sketch hidden in a picture frame that reveals that the Mona Lisa was smiling at a cat covered in spaghetti. Take that, Dan Brown. Dog of the Rings. Ruff has a nerdy little nephew named Glenn, who is into live-action role-playing. But Glenn couldn't meet with his group today, so he blackmails Ruff into letting him use the Fetchers for LARPing.
I can fix the 3000 remotely!
That's great!
but I won't do it unless I can use your fetchers as gaming pieces for the Wing Castle quest.
My fetchers aren't gaming pieces, they're people.
Oh, so you don't need a computer to do your show. Okay, signing off.
The fetchers dress as elves, wizards, and dwarves and have to solve riddles to find the majestic ring goblet of infinite awesomeness. But when they find the goblet, it turns out to be full of buffalo wings. It was a wing goblet. Because of Glenn's braces, he has trouble pronouncing the letter R, so the whole time he was saying wing goblet. The people versus Grandma Ruffman. In a previous episode, we had to do something with a cake that Grandma Ruffman was sending to Scruff Ruffman in prison, and it turns out that cake had a metal file in it, so now Grandma Ruffman is accused of trying to break Scruff Ruffman out of prison. The fetchers have to work with lawyers and forensic scientists to prove Grandma Ruffman's innocence.
I've pieced it all together, Grandma.
Oh?
Petunia must have seen your cake while watching Fetch and figured that if she made an identical cake to the one you sent to Scruff, then you'd be the one to take the fall if the metal file was found.
You pieced that all together yourself, Ruffy?
Yep. Most of it.
The most fun part about this episode is that Rosario from season 2 is a jury member. Fetch with Scruff Ruffman finale. Scruff shows up and takes over the show. He devises a grand finale with elimination rounds based on childhood memories of him and Ruff. It seems like Scruff is trying to reconnect with Ruff, but at the end of the episode, Scruff steals all of Ruff's stuff. Ruff also receives a message that he has been fired. And that's where we leave Season 3. The Season 3 grand champion is Jay. Season 4 is the first season to be in high definition, and the first episode is entirely animated. This, like a lot of later Ruff plotlines, is kind of convoluted. Ruff has been fired. He received a fax in the mail, signed Ha Ha. Blossom thinks that means that it's a prank of some kind, but Ruff thinks that it is Harriet Hackensack, the new Australian owner of the television network. Scruff Ruffman is selling all of Ruff's stuff on the internet, so Grandma Ruffman is able to buy back the Fetch 3000. Ruff, Blossom, and Chet try to sail to Australia to meet with Harriet Hackensack. Along the way, they accidentally land on Poodle Island, and Ruff is brought into prison because they think he's Scruff. Ruff then does a Shawshank Redemption-style prison break because Scruff has made a tunnel behind a promotional poster for Fetch. We make it to Harriet Hackensack. We learn that she hates dogs because, as a child, a dog destroyed her beloved sled called Rosebud. Ruff happens to have that sled. He's about to return it to her, but then it gets destroyed by various props from previous seasons. Ruff and Scruff end up facing off in a luge competition. I forget why. It doesn't matter. And it turns out Ruff was never actually fired. It was a prank by his rival Spot Spotnik. I don't know if I like Ruff Ruffman fully animated. I think he's good as a host and providing commentary. I don't know if he's great as like the main attraction. More on that later. But the show is back on, and our new fetchers are Liza, Bethany, Talia, Brian, Isaac, and Sterling. Don't like fencing? Try fencing. Ruff wants to find the Helmet of Victory. It is said to bring success to whoever wears it, and he wants to make the show more successful. This is going to be an overarching plot line for this season. But as for this episode, I just want to mention it because Liza and Isaac go pole vaulting with Nate from the PBS show Design Squad. Brand synergy. Blossom has a huge crush on Nate, and Ruff is annoyed that Nate isn't getting all this attention. Ruff's just fueling around. Two teams of fetchers have to race using various modes of transportation. They have to solve various puzzles and riddles to determine which form of transportation they will use for that leg of the journey. One that emits a lot of CO2 and one that doesn't emit any, or at least a lot less. And the team who emits the least amount of CO2 wins. The part of this episode I thought was funny as a kid was that one of the teams has to ride in a limo, which emits a lot of CO2, but obviously they're riding in a limo, so they're having a great time. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? It's Ruffman Man. There is some sort of supervillain called Gamma Ray Person who is trying to use the electromagnetic spectrum for evil. So all the kids have to dress up in silly costumes These are animals who can detect elements of the electromagnetic spectrum that we cannot.
So, have you seen Gamma Ray Guy? Yeah.
And they go solve riddles and learn about the electromagnetic spectrum to try and defeat Gamma Ray Person. In the end, it turns out that Gamma Ray Person is just Grandma Ruffman, who wanted to make a gamma ray oven. Le Peur strikes. It turns out that Blossom also has an evil twin. She is a criminal named Le Peur, and she is going to flower shops and replacing people's orders with disco music. I don't know what her goal is with that. Tally and Sterling learn about laser lights to dismantle Le Peur's security system, and Isaac learns about acting and disguises to get in an old lady disguise to try and trick Brian, who is at a flower shop. How to really train your dog. The Fetchers all go on a train and solve riddles related to the Helmet of Victory. The detective they're working with, Inspector Dijon, actually wants to steal the helmet for himself, so he sabotages the train bridge to make his escape, and the Fetchers have to work together to stop the train from crashing. Fetch Finale 4, The Prophecy Fulfilled. The Fetchers compete in elimination challenges that will also simultaneously help them uncover the Helmet of Victory. The grand champion this season is Liza, and the Ruffmans decide that she can keep the Helmet of Victory as her grand prize. Liza is on TikTok, and she still has the Helmet of Victory, thank goodness. Also, at the end of the episode, Ruff learns that his long-lost parents are alive. Season 5 premiere, Ruff fetches the Fetchers. Ruff has been so preoccupied with this bombshell that his parents are out there that he has not chosen the Fetchers for this season. This episode is framed as though Ruff is picking the contestants, but really we're just showing little interviews with each of the contestants who have, of course, already been chosen. We meet the contestants Shreya, Emmy, Ruby, Mark, Marco, and Jay. There's also the premiere of a reality game show called Go Get It, which is clearly a ripoff of Fetch, and even worse, it's hosted by cats.
Grandma, that is exactly like Fetch. I mean, you've seen my show, haven't you?
Well, actually, not all the way through. Anyway, would it hurt to get some tips from Go Get It? Are you so proud?
Then, through a convoluted series of events, Grandma gives the coordinates to help solve the mystery of Ruff's parents, and Chet accidentally gives those coordinates to the man who is driving the Fetchers to Studio G. So then all of the kids end up on Game Show Island. On Game Show Island, Ruff's parents have left cassette tapes where they instruct Ruff on how to retrieve the 4 game show relics. The kids, as always happens when it's a all 6 of them challenge, split up into teams, solve riddles, build contraptions to retrieve these game show relics. They are, of course, successful and return to Studio G. Ruffman Manor is haunted. Ruff is set to inherit Ruffman Manor, and he sends the kids to check out whether or not it's haunted. At first it seems like it definitely is, but then the kids figure out that all of the hauntings are really just optical illusions set up by one of the staff members. The kids set a trap for whoever's doing it, and they catch the butler.
And I would have gotten away with it too, if it weren't for you kids and that meddling game show host dog.
That's me.
I liked this episode because they showed a Pepper's ghost effect, perhaps most famous for being used in the ballroom scene in the Haunted Mansion. I just think Pepper's ghost effects are really cool. A whole flock of cheese. Chet is replacing everything in Ruff's doghouse with cheese, so Emmy goes to learn how to make cheese. Bit of a fact about me, my mom makes yogurt out of goat's milk. A normal thing for a mom to do. And the yogurt and cheese processes are very similar, so as a kid I thought it was a very cool explanation as to how that all worked. Also, in the parent plot line, Ruff wants to use carrier pigeons to try and send a message to his parents. This is not going to work, but he sends Jay and Ruby to learn about carrier pigeons anyway. And I just think pigeons are really cool. These cool, smart birds that we domesticated. We bred them into all different pretty varieties. And even though the way that carrier pigeons work, you can't just have them go anywhere. They're only going to go to the one location that they consider to be their home base. That's still very impressive. Long Glen Silver and the Pursuit of the Golden Fetchie. We have learned over the course of this season that the show Go Get It is being produced by a shadowy organization called PERS. And PERS is somehow responsible for the disappearance of Ruff's parents. Glenn accidentally hacks into the PERS website and discovers that the organization is looking for something called the Golden Fetchie. Ruff sends the fetchers to try and get the Golden Fetchie before PERS can. The kids successfully retrieve it, but at the last second, it's stolen by a cat. The kids come back to Studio G, and we find out that the Golden Fetchie isn't just a statue. It's a brainwashing device. And PERS is going to use the Golden Fetchie, brainwash everyone who's watching Go Get It.
Yes! Everyone who watches Go Get It today, and they have a much bigger audience than you.
I know! What's going to happen to them, Grandma?
Into thinking that they're cats. And in doing so, take over the world.
Grandma, how did you know about the Golden Fetchie?
Oh, when I was younger, I used to work as a spy.
You did?
For the good guys, of course. But I haven't done that for months.
Months?
The Fetch finale. The PERS headquarters is hidden somewhere inside of a water park. It's the last place anyone would look because cats hate water. So for the grand finale, we're going to do various elimination rounds at this water park while also trying to take down PERS. The fetchers make it to the PERS headquarters, which is the Go Get It studio, which is just the Fetch studio, but pink. As part of the elimination rounds, the fetchers have to build projectile devices to deactivate the Golden Fetchie. They do so successfully, and Marco wins the final round to become the Fetch Grand Champion. And it is revealed that the cat hosts of Go Get It are actually Ruff's parents in disguise. Ruff's parents are spies, and they were trying to take down PERS from the inside. Now Ruff has been reunited with his parents. We've crowned a grand champion, and Ruff sings a farewell song. The end. So that's sort of a look at the show. I was biased towards episodes where all 6 of the contestants went out on the challenge. I think those left more of an impression on me as a kid. But there's obviously plenty of self-contained challenges that were very fun too. The other thing that really left an impression on me as a kid were the games on the PBS Kids website.
Okay, one last thing. Not only do I host my own television show, but I have a fantastic website too. Check it out. There are tons of great games and lots more. Oh, it makes my tail wag every time I think about it.
pbskidsgo.org.
I think just being a kid in the 2000s was playing Flash games on a website. There were quite a few games that I remember fondly, including Robot Rover, where you design a rover and then collect items for Ruff over different terrain. Woler Coaster, where you build a roller coaster. Dish It Out, where you set up ramps to get a ball into a Chinese food container. Geyser Surpriser, where you edit the various elements of a geyser to then use it to cook food. Germinator, where you play as a germ trying to get through the body's various defenses. A series of CSI games where you're solving some kind of mystery with forensic evidence. Move It or Luge It, where you luge trying to collect points. What Are We Doing, where you use water in different forms to ice drinks, steam food, and water flowers. And finally, Linkovision, where you find the common elements between different animals. Then there are the Fetch with Ruff Ruffman spin-offs. The first is Ruff Ruffman, Humble Media Genius, which is a series of animated shorts that first came out in late 2014. These are educational about technology and the internet. There were a few episodes themed around a topic, and then a few episodes where Ruff answers questions from kids. We learn about data privacy, safety when browsing, and not writing things that would upset people. I think the answering questions ones work better than the topic-based ones, because the topic-based ones are not very information-dense and also not very focused. So for example, the episode about pictures, we learn that Ruff takes a lot of selfies. Chet takes a picture of cheese, but he has his location data on, so a bunch of mice come to steal his cheese. Ruff says that photos can show things like plants growing. You can also take photos of letters as a game. and Ruff sends a photo of himself to his grandma wearing a gift she gave him. And like, what useful information was in that? Just the location data thing, right? So then it's a lot of filler that's, I guess, about pictures? I don't know. The writing doesn't seem tight enough compared to at least the question answering ones are focused because it's answering a specific question. They also apparently did a distracted driving campaign. The actual videos are fine, but the advertisement for the videos is very cute.
Throughout history, campaigns have been aimed at distracted drivers. And yet, people still text and drive. So a new and unusual approach has been devised, harnessing a previously untapped resource, the nagging power of children. Yes, nag power has helped convince parents to recycle, quit smoking, and wear seatbelts. In extreme cases, it has also been used to acquire puppies and kittens. Aw, how adorable.
Then in 2024, there was a new season of Ruff Ruffman Humble Media Genius about AI. There's a new character in these episodes, a cat named Lupin. She's basically just Blossom, but she's turquoise and she talks. The limitation of Ruff Ruffman is that only Ruff and his family members can talk. So I understand them wanting another character that Ruff could talk to, but it does feel weird that their solution was just Blue Blossom. These AI episodes are basically just about being very descriptive with the prompts that you give AI.
You just have to come up with good instructions so that the AI has the information it needs to give you helpful answers.
There's one about making AI art. There's one where they're asking an AI assistant where to go for fun, and they have to revise their question. There's one where Ruff uses AI to write poetry. This one, you could argue, has an added lesson of rewrite it so it sounds like you. I was really underwhelmed by these. I felt like they didn't really explain what AI is, how it works, when you should use it. I feel like they could have had a line in the poetry episode, like, ask your teacher if it's okay to use AI. So again, not very informative and also really limited advice. My least favorite video is there's one with a robot grandma. Ruff has bought a robot grandma. Lupin burns the recipe she's making, and so the robot grandma generates new recipes. And they're gonna have the robot grandma clean the house, so they have her scan the house to figure out what needs to be cleaned. And instead, the robot grandma just tells them what they need to clean and makes them do it. And that's the end of that episode. Which, like, that's a weird episode in your educational video series about AI, because AI that can generate recipes does exist, but an actual robot that could clean and chooses not to does not exist. Unless if Roomba's made some advancements I don't know about. So it's not educational because nothing like this exists and it's giving no information at all. So then is it just meant to be like funny and entertaining? Because I have bad news for you guys. I don't think the Humble Media Genius episodes do that. But I think those AI episodes are reflective of the current state of AI. Generating answers you could use a search engine for, and generating art while not helping with actual tasks that it would be helpful for a robot to do. Here's a poem. Here's some recipes you could have Googled. Then in 2017, we get another spin-off, the Ruff Ruffman Show. These are animated shorts with live action segments from kids. Each episode has kids doing a different science lesson. There were 20 episodes in total, and there are 4 different story arcs. So each set of 5 episodes has its own storyline, and the science experiments all follow a theme. The 5th video in each storyline is a song summarizing the lessons in the previous episodes. So the first one is Ruff's cousin, Bluff Ruffman, tricks Ruff into pet sitting a rhinoceros. The science lessons are all about different materials, how they can be strong or absorbent, different characteristics. The next storyline, Ruff is going to give a plushie of himself to his grandma. but he loses it. These episodes are all about force, so like friction and gravity. In the next storyline, Ruff and Scruff do a cooking competition. These focus on temperature and liquids versus solids. Then the last set doesn't really have a storyline, but they're all about building. It's kind of like the discount version of Fetch. It's Ruff Ruffman and live action kids doing science, but they're each like 5 minutes, and there's not that magical interaction between Ruff and the kids. These feel really slow paced. They have this long animation lead up into whatever the science lesson is. I mean, I say long, these episodes are like 5 minutes, but it feels long, okay? And they're not as funny as I want them to be. They're clearly made by people who love Ruff Ruffman and this world. There's like tons of references to Fetch, but they were kind of hard to get through. Maybe it's just because it's aimed at a younger audience than Fetch, and perhaps I'm being too hard on it, but this is my show, and I could say whatever I want. The last spinoff is like barely a spinoff. It's called Team Hamster. It follows 3 hamsters who are like the class pet in a classroom, and Ruff is the school janitor. And so Ruff is messing things up because he's incompetent, and the hamsters have to go in and use basic science to fix things. I have many questions. First of all, is this a world that is only populated by animals? Because Ruff Ruffman is a dog, and having him be a school janitor is an odd choice if this is a school for human children. What has happened to Ruff to where he is a school janitor?
There's like a hamster one now. Yes. Where Ruff Ruffman is apparently a janitor, so he has certainly fallen from grace. With no explanation as to how he went from the host of his own game show to just being you have to make a series of really bad choices to fall for it. And I was a little disappointed that they didn't explore what got him to that point. But then again, it wasn't his show, so he had no recourse.
I mean, I'd ask why Ruff is here at all. I mean, I think the reason that Ruff is here is because the people at PBS really love Ruff, so they're like, let's just put him in there. But I'm not, like, happy to see Ruff on Team Hamster. It just makes me more sad about Fetch. I guess it's good that we're keeping the character alive, and Jim Conroy is getting paid, but you hear the character of Ruff Ruffman is in a bunch of spinoffs. And you're like, oh, I bet that's cute. And it's not. When I told my mom that there were Fetch spinoffs, she was like, you could do anything with Ruff Ruffman and it would be great. And I was like, well, unfortunately, he does have to be properly utilized. And I don't think they've figured that out yet. And then the last thing I have, I wouldn't consider a spinoff, but I don't know what else to call it. In 2022, the GBH TikTok account did a series called Fetchtok, where Ruff gave out 5 different challenges for people on TikTok to post, and then Ruff would react to some of the entries. The show was done with Jim Conroy just recording himself wiggling around little paper cutouts of Ruff Ruffman, and then the rest of it was just real people posting their challenge entries. The challenges included building a kite, doing ballet, making a Ruff Ruffman toy, making vegetable ice cream, and making some attire inspired by Ruff, which I guess I'm doing right now. How many points do I get in the Triumph Tally? This was pretty cute. I think they overcomplicated it by keeping track of the entries and actually awarding people points. I don't think you need to do that. I think the reward doesn't have to be points. It can just be Ruff Ruffman reacting to your entry. And it seems like they only did 1 reaction video per challenge, maybe because they didn't want to clutter up their TikTok account. But I think you could easily do this again, or even more long-term, of just posting challenges, have someone edit together some highlight videos of entries, have Ruff react to them. It's a very cute idea. And that's where we are today. We've caught up to the present day. After watching this video, if that still wasn't enough Fetch for you, I'd recommend just watching it. I think it holds up. It's funny and very positive and educational. It's almost cozy in a way. I mean, I took too long researching this video because I just wanted to watch episodes of Fetch. I was like, I'm technically working because I need to write the notes on the episodes. And it also occurred to me that if you're looking for that fetch fix, but you don't want to literally watch fetch, I'd recommend Game Changer on Dropout or Taskmaster, because I think those have kind of a similar vibe. When I was doing my research, watching too many episodes of Fetch, I was like, gosh, I wish there was a Fetch for grown-ups. And then I was like, wait, that's why I like those shows so much. I hope you enjoyed this look into Fetch. I couldn't cover absolutely everything, but I think I did a pretty good job. If you liked this video, you can subscribe. I'm Sarah Seraph on all social media if you want more of me. And as always, all of the sources I used are linked in a Google Doc in the description. And I don't know how to end a YouTube video. So, bye!